So we'll see. Anyway, so I'm John Seacrest. My goal is to make startups go faster, get funded better, be more successful, and get angel investors to be in the ecosystem to do that. Thorsten has been working with me for several years on how to do lean development and how to do customer development. And we've worked several different organizations on that. And he's now been working on automating and building a platform to drive that. So Thorsten, you want to introduce yourself and then dive into the process?
Yes. So my name is Thorsten. I work for a company called Innoai AI. We are building a platform that tries to solve the problem of automatic lead generation, sales generation, and running custom experiments. What we found out over the last few months is that the process of running a customer experiment or building a lead gen engine is pretty much the same. Let me share my screen. We divided that presentation pretty much in two parts. The first part is a little bit about our story, how we actually built that, right? Talking about startup assumptions and hypotheses and how do we
We lost you, Thorsten.
You went on mute.
I did. Oh, I'm sorry. So in the second part of the presentation is how do we build actually a lead gen process. So I have one example. It's a very easy one, which shows you how to build a custom experiment and how you build a lead generation engine using, the free tools that are available to you on LinkedIn, right? And tap into some of the other tools that you need in order to really scale up your LinkedIn generation. Let me share my screen with you. Yep. Can you see that? Yes.
Yeah, we're good.
All right. So I'm founder of Innoai AI. As I was just mentioning, I'm a 3 times and 2 times failed founder myself, right? I didn't do the customer experiments myself, so I had my pretty much my assumptions all the time and always felt I was like right, but the market and the customer proved me wrong, right? I would have loved to have that kind of machine that we built in order to validate our business assumptions, a few years ago. We do B2B sales automation. We work mainly for early stage startups, Series A startups, and start now working for accelerators. And our team actually, because of COVID-19 is based in Germany, in the US, and in the Philippines. And I'm now in Frankfurt, Germany. The story is, my background is innovation management, digital marketing, and where I ran, hundreds of different projects. And the key challenge, in startup and in corporate innovation, was pretty much how do you get actually an innovation, tested in the market without breaking the bank. And many of the projects that we were working on that failed because we were going into a design sprint. The client was happy to spend a week in a room. We got out of it and suddenly the client didn't allocate any resources anymore. They didn't have any time anymore. And the question always came back, how do we build a machine or a platform that can help us validate a customer or product assumptions. That was 2017, and at that time I was working for a consulting firm. We took on that challenge, but in the meantime, we folded our consulting business, and I'm focusing now 100% of my time on building that platform. So the journey here is in 2017, we identified the problem, we identified a hypothesis in 2018. We built 3 proof of concepts and we built 2 prototypes and we are now in the MVP stage. It was a very interesting journey because when we started this and we started actually talking about LinkedIn automation like 3 years ago, but what we expected actually that our clients or companies need actually a dashboard. Right? A dashboard that shows them like growth metrics, that shows them actually like marketing metrics. And so we spent a couple of $100 on a dashboard and we tested it in the market and the experiment failed, right? So because we figured, okay, why would you need a dashboard if you don't run an experiment, right? It was quite easy. Because the companies that we were talking to at that time, they still had the same problem. They couldn't use the dashboard, and because they didn't run the experiments. In 2019, I was actually in Seattle. I was talking to Looney and to John, and there was the idea that they came up with, why don't we build an email chain, right? Basically sending out emails to a founder, to a team, and telling them actually what to do, right? How do you run the experiment? So we built an email chain. We built actually a Slack bot and invited a bunch of folks into a Slack bot. What they learned is actually how to run the experiment, right? How to actually set up your LinkedIn in order to run the automation, but they didn't do it. They didn't run it, right? And the reason is it was too difficult actually to set up. I mean, and one of the key challenges they had is that the technology involved can be handled by a tech founder or by an analytics team. But the companies that we're usually talking to are the rest, the other 90%. And they are like, I mean, standard B2B companies. And they're trying to get their product in the market, and they don't understand actually how to build a LinkedIn automation. So it was a very interesting learning for us. The other thing is email doesn't work. We built this email chain in order to get them engaged. What we found out is you can't do that because we were actually disappearing in the inbox, in their day-to-day inbox. In 2019, we built a SaaS platform, right? We built actually a mock-up of a SaaS platform that was there to build customer development experiments. We put a landing page in the market and put out 2 price offers, 2 services, and we failed, right? That is actually last year when I was in Seattle, because people felt the service was not clear, there was no benefit, the pricing was too high. And of course, the most important part in LinkedIn messaging is the message itself, right? And we didn't solve that at that time. So in 2019, I already returned back to Europe. We started actually playing with personalization, and we got ourselves a white label platform that looks like that here, and tested it and branded it as our own platform. And what it does is actually it hyper personalizes LinkedIn messages, and it hyper personalizes advertising in the background. So whoever we target on a LinkedIn message, with an image or with any personalization elements, we can actually retarget on a landing page or even in a Facebook ad. So if somebody receives your message, right, and he's not responding, so he's just clicking on it, we get him back on a personalized landing page or even in advertising. But again, this failed too, because from a technology point of view, very sophisticated, but the users that we were talking to, they were unable actually to build the automation in that machine. And they were missing actually some of the features which we have these days. So, I mean, like the LinkedIn or the Facebook automation. But what happened is we got 18 clients, and like in the first months and in February, COVID-19 happened and we lost all of them. And this is actually where it got very interesting, because the feedback we got back from these 18 clients, well, we were seeing actually sales picking up, right? But still, they had a different business to do, like most of the companies that were affected by that. And this is when we started thinking about how do we actually take that platform idea and get it into a market where everybody talks about automation, because COVID-19 actually changed the narrative in the market from experiments to automation with all the remote workers at home. And what we did is actually we let a few customer, I mean, all in all, I have about 80 customer interviews, like CEOs and users. And the key points, they always were coming back to, how do I build actually a consistent number of leads and sales demos? This is the key point, right, to what it comes down. And the platform that we were trying to build at that time was built around running experiments. And so we changed that narrative actually into sales, into B2B sales, and launched our first MVP. So it got us lots of eyeballs in the US and here in the European Union. What happened is, because of the automation and the conversation that is happening in social media, we started talking to many customers all of a sudden, right? And we started converting these these prospects into customers. What we didn't do, we didn't change anything in the platform. So just that narrative change, right, actually helped us to get something into the market, which always has been there, right? By August 2020, this is actually like a month ago, we started building the second iteration because what happened is we have now, using our own machine, roughly 10 to 15 hot leads every month coming through LinkedIn, and we automate the entire process. So we are actually dog fooding here, to quote John. So Innoai is a lead gen automation and communications platform that puts prospecting on autopilot. And you got many tools like that in the market already. What we do is we send rule-based segment and profile-specific messages to prospects, so we can hyper-personalize images in LinkedIn. We can pick up to 18 data points inside of the LinkedIn profile and personalize that. We automate the entire lead generation funnel. So be it inbound marketing, be it outbound marketing, retargeting, landing pages, spots, everything can be personalized and can actually be used in that platform. And finally, we automated now website visitor prospecting. So whoever comes to your website, we actually find his LinkedIn profile automatically and run an automation in the background and prospect him directly off your website. So if he fits your ideal customer profile, we can identify him using a tag that we put on your website. We run actually his or the company's LinkedIn profile by actually accessing the IP data. And so in the US, you actually can target these visitors directly. European Union, you cannot because of data privacy concerns. So what we do over here, for instance, we just go after general profiles. So the problem in a nutshell now is that we are trying to solve B2B companies. I mean, they do not have developed a predictable way of generating leads and sales, but in the end, a business needs actually to generate leads and sales, otherwise they will be out of business, right? And this was the feedback from our own CEO, from our own customer interviews. What we promised to our clients, because based on the experience now, is that in 3 months, over the first 3 months, we built predictable lead pipelines. We look at the numbers, we actually see your KPIs, and we help you building your message flow. And based on that, after 3 months, you have a predictable lead pipeline. So you can basically put that in your budget and pretty much account, I mean, a certain percentage of your incoming lead flow towards the LinkedIn automation. We generate usually 15 to 30% reply rate for LinkedIn social messaging or cold email campaigns. So this is, I mean, where we use cold email because some of the customers or clients, our clients going after, they are not on LinkedIn. So we added actually the cold email campaign element, and we're pulling the data actually from different other sources, right? But the campaign works pretty much like LinkedIn and is totally automated. So the benefit here is your sales team can focus on closing, you have the automated lead conversion system, and you have a predictable MRR growth rate. If you do this actually for more than 6 months, you will be able to predict your growth rates over the next 12 to 18 months if you continue doing this. And the key learnings, very important before we dive into the automation itself. We are not a software as a service company. And this is what we had to learn because we tried to build this, right? We are more like the other way around. We are a service as a software company because we are providing a service and have a platform wrapped around this. we still have to service our clients because many have very different requirements. They have different setups when it comes to like their website infrastructure, when it comes to their email infrastructure, when it comes to their target audiences. So, and we tried actually building a SaaS, but people couldn't use it because it was too difficult. This is the reason why we changed that model into a service as a software model. And the important component here is customers, clients like you expect fast results, right? You don't want to wait actually for 3 or 4 months to for results to kick in. So, and okay. And this is actually what we learn each and every month. Once a client leaves us, right, they're usually dissatisfied. Right. And we haven't had that. I mean, we had like 2 clients leaving, or, I mean, they're so busy because of the number of clients, we actually were able to get them. And this is an interesting approach. And I think Jason is one of these guys who is on this call, who sent me that nice email that he got so busy that he had to stop using our service, I mean, for some time. So if we look at our customer, right, our client, I mean, this is companies like you want to have an automated way to market your product or your service. You want to get it done, right? And you don't want to spend time learning it. And you don't want to watch videos I sent you. You just want to get it done, right? You don't want to opt in on anything, right? In a nutshell, you want to just get it done, right? You want to see the results and you want to get your sales team busy, right? And get them actually on the phone and closing clients instead of figuring out how the automation works. This is a lead flow. I mean, as we sell it these days for companies, right? This is just lead generation. And this is what you get from many, many companies in the market. There's many competitors offering very similar services. What we do is a little bit more complicated because it involves LinkedIn automation. It does include the entire email follow-up series. So whenever you have a lead, or identified a lead and he drops off actually your communication flow, we automatically get him back into your email sequence. And I mean, there are times when you get on a phone with a prospect and he's just not interested, or it is just not the right time, but he's not talking to you about this, right? So our system actually detects that and tries to get him back into the communication loop, right? So in this way, we are trying to make sure that we are not losing any clients that we have identified to be, I mean, warm leads. And this system includes like website prospecting. We built segmentation funnels because not all of the clients we are targeting are reachable on LinkedIn, or I mean, are able or willing to talk on LinkedIn. So we do a retargeting series and get them back into an inbound segmentation funnel, segment actually that client or customer, and then put them into the right communication sequence. And we're also doing the onboarding, right? Because we felt, I mean, after you closed your client, we are now building a series how to onboard your client into, I mean, a software or into a service company. But well, enough about our history. Let's look at the LinkedIn requirements, right? How do you build this automation, right? And again, there are 2 ways doing this. I mean, one is the customer development part, which is the easier part. So you just need a LinkedIn Premium or Sales Navigator account. Very important here is with a free account, you will not be able to run any automation, right? Because the data you're getting out of the free account is very limited and you have only a very limited number of connection requests per day. And the way we run LinkedIn automation campaigns is that we pretty much look into the search of a let me go further in a LinkedIn search. And this is the LinkedIn search which gives you about 12 different criteria. This is LinkedIn Premium. And the big difference to Sales Navigator is you can only reach out to your first and second degree connections. And the data you're getting is very general. If you compare this to Sales Navigator, you got 28 different data points that you can tap into. And the important part is you can actually do outreach campaigns to your third level degrees. And this is the main difference because it increases the number of people you actually can reach out to. Let's go back for a moment. What you would need is a free Calendly account. We recommend Calendly because it's the easiest to set up. And of course, a LinkedIn automation tool like the one we use, or I mean, there are even free tools on the market. Like Phantom Buster is one, right? So you can actually try that for free. I think they give you like 10 or 15 minutes a day of automation. And of course, they want to upsell you into their own automation tool. And if you're just running a customer development experiment, I mean, this is perfectly fine because you only need to run a messaging series inside of LinkedIn into a target audience that you have identified on the search or into one of the LinkedIn groups. If you do sales, and this is a little bit more complicated, then you need a landing page, which is free. Email marketing account like MailChimp and a Zapier account in order to connect all the pieces. Zapier is becoming like the glue of the internet, right? Because it connects all these different services and makes sure that all the data that you're collecting on these different services are ending up in your database. So this here is a basic setup for a very basic LinkedIn campaign that we do like daily. So you have like a 3-step messaging, right? So a connection request. On day number 2, you send like a thank you message. And on day number 3, 4, or 5, or 6, or 10, you send your pitch, right? And if you do just customer experiments, right? So you're looking actually for an interview partner, you're looking for an early adopter, and this is the easy way to do it because they are usually very open to connecting with you and basically giving you feedback on your product. And John actually, I mean, like last year, we were having a conversation. There is this one fellow group, the 100,000 experiments, right? There's a bunch of startups in that group, right? And the big question is, why don't you run an experiment, right? Just run it, right? And this was one of the questions that we were asking ourselves, why don't people run experiments? So when we were actually doing our interviews it's too complicated and people are lazy, and they are not just lazy, they are busy, right? And just doing the setup of this, right? It feels like it's complicated, but it's actually not. It's just doing it, right? And the interesting part here is once you get it up and running, if you do sales, we send out each and every day 100 sales messages in our own company. Every day, automatically. I mean, we have a profile link in the background and we change this profile link once a week because we are tapping into new profiles. But this is pretty much everything what we do when it comes to automation. We have a landing page. Everybody is actually fed into the same calendar account. Everybody, I mean, gets like the same email treatment, the same follow-up treatment. And I mean, based on the stage, on your behavior, the email automatically changes. It always pulls you back into the process. So that setup here, the first 3 stages, I mean, I would say are perfect actually for a company who is trying to get a few early adopters in and actually get their opinion on their product. If you're building a sales pipeline and just getting started, this process here is very easy to build, right? Because it requires only a landing page. It requires actually a lead magnet, and this can be a video, this can be an ebook, anything that provides like value to your prospective customer. Because you shouldn't forget, once you reach out to people on LinkedIn, right, it's still a social platform, right? So it's not like a hard selling platform, right? I mean, therefore it's important that you really need to understand your customer profile, that you're talking to the correct customers, right? And I've seen campaigns, and we ran actually, I mean, our own campaigns, right, to the wrong audience. And I mean, we were actually very disappointed with the result results, actually people are writing us back never to contact them again, right? So this happens actually if you're targeting really the wrong audience. And this is, I mean, this flow here, I mean, can be totally customized to any need, right? I mean, any company can do that, because any company who has a website can build a landing page and can build that process in the back end. And what I actually provide here is there are a few links in that presentation. There is a messaging guide, right, which we provide. You get actually all the messages that are being used on LinkedIn that actually convert. We actually give you a sales navigator guide, how to use actually a LinkedIn sales navigator in order to find your leads. And then the most important one, how to build your profile actually on LinkedIn, because many of the profiles we see with our clients are still resumes, right? And you need to turn this into a small little landing page, right? You need to have your sales pitch on your LinkedIn profile, because if anybody connects to you, the first thing they see is your profile information. So you need actually to let them know what is it, what you have to offer, right? So very important. And your conversion rate, your connection rate will actually go up if you rebuild your profile in a way that it's a more sales focused profile. But the messaging strategy itself, again, it consists usually of a connection request, the thank you message, and what we usually do is we offer immediately, I mean, an introduction to our own network, because these days everybody needs, I mean, network connections, right? So we offer this like instantly, right, in our welcome message. And then we, based on the audience, we design a pitch message, and this actually can be, I mean, really just an ask, right, to fill out a survey. It can be a landing page. It can be anything, right? And again, this is stuff that needs to be tested, because I mean there is no one fits all, right? Because the information you're getting out of the LinkedIn URL is for every LinkedIn search is different, right? So if I would do a search with the same LinkedIn information or customer information, I would get a totally different result. And therefore, it's very important that this is being really paid attention to. How do you set up the automation? Okay, this is very blurry. Okay, here it is. There are tools. I mentioned Phantom Buster, and I'm going to provide the tools to you that you can use. There is Texau. I mean, there's a bunch of tools that you can use for free and really just test it, right? And these three tools are actually good for testing, right? If you want to build this, you need probably a more professional solution, or you need somebody on your team who really takes care of this. And from experiences, you need to spend probably 1 day a week just actually looking into the lead generation, the prospect identification part, and then of course building it, and somebody actually needs to take the phone calls, right? So, and usually when we actually start talking to prospects, the first thing we ask is, do you have the capacity actually, the people on your team, to take on more leads and actually really work with new leads and your clients, right? Because a campaign like that doesn't make any sense if we don't have, I mean, enough resources available. Yeah, and then you hit one on that campaign. So the do's and don'ts, and well, let me go back maybe, I mean, to that one here. This is the basic setup, how to run a LinkedIn campaign. And we have, for instance, a system, right, where you can switch like between email and LinkedIn messages. I wouldn't do that, right? People are sometimes very surprised. We have the capability, if this is necessary. We switch over to email when we do follow-up campaigns. Once we have a clear opt-in, or we have an interest, then we switch over to email, because the email is the most important data point we should be collecting at this point. Because a cold prospect turns into a warm prospect, and the lead funnel at this stage, if after opt-in and download, we can shorten this, because the goal here is to get somebody on the phone actually, and get on a discovery call and get to know your product. Run. So very important is the value proposition. I mean, I know that John is probably, I mean, a fan of that, but we've seen that many times with startups. If you have an unclear value proposition, automation is actually not working for you because you're putting garbage in and you're getting garbage out. We've seen that unfortunately that clients actually change that, right? Or basically they fail the first time with their messaging, and the second time they fix this, right, and come along with a clear and crisp value proposition, and then automation works. Very important, test everything, right, before you go live, even, I mean, internally, and always start with small batches of messages. Very important, the email part. I mean, LinkedIn is actually looking after warmed up LinkedIn accounts. And we have many clients that have less than 500 connections. So LinkedIn imposes a limit actually of the number of connection requests you can send out every day. And this, I mean, applies to automation too. So if you have 500 connections only and 3%, so you can pretty much send like 15 connection requests per day, right? So talking about expectations here. So you can actually bump this up if you use Sales Navigator. So Sales Navigator gives you like 40 messages with 500 existing connections. And when we talk about cold email, same situation. We usually start with LinkedIn, right? Because it's easier to set up. Once we run cold email marketing, we put everything in a subdomain, and a subdomain is important in order to protect your main domain from being flagged as a spammer, right? There's many people in the market. I mean, they don't want to get any messages. I mean, any cold outbound messages. So they just flag you as a spammer. And if this happens to you like 10 times, 20 times, I mean, you're going to ruin your domain. So for that reason, I mean, if you do cold email marketing, this needs to happen on a subdomain or on a separate domain, right, from your main domain. Yeah, and consistency is very important, right? So, I mean, again, we are lazy, right? If we were to do, I mean, a daily campaign manually, I mean, we would manage probably 5 or 6 people, right? With all the data scraping and writing a personalized message. With LinkedIn automation, you can run that consistent between 500, I mean, 50 and 500 messages per day. We see that all the time. And this makes the difference. It takes about 3 months, right, to build up a flow, I mean, of coming from LinkedIn and cold email marketing, because this is something that you have to start slowly and you have to test again your messages and of course your messaging strategy. And we need to figure out if the audience that you're targeting is the right audience, right? Because we ran tests for clients and we figured after some time that we have a totally different audience than they were actually expecting. But again, I'm happy to share a test document, how you build your test actually on a LinkedIn campaign, right? And what you actually can test. That is, in a nutshell, pretty much it. And now we can answer all questions.
Hello. Hi, this is Lee. I got a couple questions.
Shoot.
Okay, so the setup, we use another off-the-shelf tool, LinkedIn Helper. We have a couple hundred clients, mostly professional on LinkedIn, like finance advisors and HR professional. These are our sweet spots. So it's pretty dumb tool, you know. So you just send messages. So I wonder if we switch to your tool, how much automation can you provide? For example, the setup. We do everything pretty much on hand. Okay, LinkedIn Helper help a little bit, send 5 sets of messages. Thank you and pitch. We do that same thing, but we don't. You know, the tools, in my regard, they don't have brains, right? They're extensions. They can do whatever you want. So we actually hacked into their code and do something about it. So that workflow perfectly makes sense, but I don't think I can sell that workflow to these professionals. They don't, like you said, the proposition, they know nothing, they don't want to do anything, they don't have time to do anything, right? They want ROI, they want the results. So from our test, we do everything by hand, sell them as a monthly service, and we actually give them a remote server to run LinkedIn for them with their permission to have an account. So in that regard, what are the benefits your system provides? We're looking for automation beyond that tools, right? And the setup. Do you automate the setup with Zapier, or how? That's number one. Number two, so we try to break out from the rule-based systems. So it's like you have to send invite, then get thank you, then we do like 3 days, we send page 1, 5 days page 2, stuff like that. Eventually we do calendarly exactly, and our success was, hey, you got appointment. So the results not bad. I just it's not automated inside of this house. So I was wondering what are the advantages how much human cost I can reduce if we switch to your system?
I mean, the first question, yes, we use Zapier in the back end, and I mean, there are different tools that you can use. I mean, Zapier has been the most reliable one and with the most integrations. So for that reason, we use Zapier, and we usually provide this to our clients for free because we are on kind of a corporate account, right? Because we set up usually automations in the back end.
Okay. So the question is, right now, is it a client who set up the flow?
No, we set it up. And again, coming back to that comment I made, we are more service as a software company.
Okay. So internally, how do you set up? So is that your team set up flow, or is there some sort of a internal automation running?
We have we run a project management system, and we have a process that we run every client through. And it starts pretty much with just building your value proposition, right? And looking in all the customer data. From a tech point of view, right? So we take over at some point and we start having a conversation. What is the setup that you need? So we set you up with a LinkedIn automation tool, right? We connect your LinkedIn, right? And so you have access to it. We don't see your LinkedIn, right? But we connect it. We build the automation for that LinkedIn tool in the back end, right? And run it. We run the schedules, right? So because we have experience doing this. And there's many tools in the market, right? Definitely, right? The only thing what you got to do is, which is very important, they are client-based and they are server-based tools, right? And you always should actually use a server-based tool because LinkedIn cannot detect it. If you're running a client-based, like in your browser, a tool, they're going to ban you eventually.
Okay.
Very important. So our infrastructure is totally server-based, right? And which is important. I think LinkedIn Helper, to be honest, I heard that name before. It runs in your browser, right?
Yep. It's a Chrome extension.
Yeah, I'm going to send you, I'm happy to share an article on the difference of client and browser-based. Sure. It's a security issue because what you need to do is you need to prevent your account from being banned by LinkedIn. And they banned many LinkedIn Helper tools.
Yeah, that hasn't happened, but yeah, sure.
Okay. You got to be careful. You have only one LinkedIn account, right?
Yes. We have 100, 200 never been banned. So we've been careful. Yes. Yeah. But the thing is, we play IP. We have to, that's what kind of virtual IP, redirect IP to the client office. And we have to control the speed, how the client bot type in the message in the human speed. So it doesn't do copy paste. And of course, you said we're careful about the quota, daily quota, how many you can invite based on your current connection size, things like that. Yes. So
Thorsten,
I'd like to know
if
some
you
more
take
information.
a look at the chat, there's a bunch of questions and discussion in there, please.
All right. Okay, first one. Yes, we do B2C. We started actually 2 projects on B2C, right? It's different. It's not on LinkedIn. We use Facebook for that, right? And we run automations on Facebook, right? we actually go into the Facebook groups and scrape, members out of Facebook and run targeted campaigns against these members in Facebook groups. It's a different approach, right? B2C doesn't work in LinkedIn, right? Unless you are trying to go, after some individuals who are interested in buying a service, but LinkedIn is, is B2B. So Facebook is the way to go, and I don't know your product, but even Instagram, and I can get, there's a tool, I mentioned that it's Phantom Buster. They tap into a lot of these Facebook and Instagram and any other B2C platform automations too, right? And they are quite easy to set up.
I have a follow-up on that one.
The strategy is the same. You need to have a value proposition too.
I have a follow-up on the Facebook one because I'm also B2C. Once you scrape Facebook and add them, what's your communication medium? Are you Facebook messaging them, or then you bring it onto another platform?
No, you can actually run ads against it. You can run ads, right? And
you get their ID and then you target those. Right. Okay.
Yeah. There is a way we actually can tap into the Facebook groups, right, and target that, like your competitors. All your competitive buyers, for instance.
Got it. So you scrape the Facebook ID and then upload those as what your group campaign is, and then you target those.
Yes, we scrape the idea and actually relate it to data that we can access and get the email address, right? Because Facebook doesn't allow you actually to target Facebook group members, right?
You could target IDs.
Hello?
Hello? Sorry, something cut in. So from what I understand, and I can chat with you later if there's people who want to get to other questions, but from what I understand, you can upload specific user IDs into Facebook or target that way, or how do you cross that bridge?
There are tools that we use. There are tools on the market that actually bridge that gap.
Okay.
There's no direct way, and we've been playing with that ourselves, right? We have a use case right now, exactly the same situation where we are actually going into a competitor's group with 500,000 members, right? Mm-hmm. We are running an advertising campaign test against that membership.
Okay. And then are you scraping on Facebook using client side or server side?
Server side.
Okay. So you do server side for everything?
We use only server side, yeah.
Okay. And I'll have a lot of technical follow-up questions I can ask later, but one of the issues we faced was, obviously when you log in client side, they're setting cookies. I know some sites use JavaScript to validate you on the client side.
We do that actually too, right? So on the server side, you have to update your cookie, right? Mm-hmm. So basically you get a login and we refresh the cookie usually every 3 days.
So you log in client side, get that cookie, push that to the server side, and then scrape with that. Perfect. All right. Thanks.
So Brad asked about the question of A/B testing.
What's the question?
Well, no, actually, that was a follow-up. There was some confusion on when you use the word experiment. Could you explain a little bit what you mean by experiment?
To validate a hypothesis or an assumption for a startup, right?
Okay, so let's rephrase that into, you're basically talking about test campaigns, right?
Correct.
No.
Okay. No.
It's about the discovery of customers. You have a hypothesis that this kind of customer is your customer, and you're going to run a campaign that is a test to validate that that group cares about what you're doing. It's the process of sub-segmenting your audience base in the early customer discovery phase.
So it's persona testing, in a sense.
In a sense, persona requires you to understand something about the narrative that group uses.
Exactly.
And it also requires you to understand something about the edge cases of where people are in or out of the interest band.
So you still run A/B tests. You can actually run a test on the persona or on your product or your market, right?
Yeah. So this really is about, well, I think my customer's interested in this, so let's really find out.
Mm. Yep.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
So I had a quick question about the difference between the services that you're offering versus Phantom Buster. I'm familiar with Phantom Buster.
Louder or move closer to your mic, Mark.
There it is.
Mark, get closer to your
Yeah, can
mic.
you hear me all right now?
Yeah,
Yes.
I did hear your question. I did hear the question.
Okay.
Phantom Buster offers you an automation service, right? And you have pretty much to set up your automation yourself and connect all the dots and pieces, right? And you could do some
Right.
data scraping. What we do is an end-to-end solution, right? So we have
Right.
some clients, they use actually Phantom Buster, and we use actually their accounts to scrape the data, but it's about connecting the data and actually, running, the campaigns behind it. So
Yeah.
data scraping is one part of it, right? And Phantom Buster is a good tool actually to scrape data. Definitely. And it's
Awesome.
actually it's server-based too, right? Very important.
And so because I look at Phantom Buster and I see what they're capable of doing, and I think to myself, wow, this is super awesome, but I'm just not super technical, and so I get quickly overwhelmed with how am I going to pull this out of that
Right.
and put that into this, and so you're going to help be the glue to fill those pieces in.
This is the reason why we exist, correct?
Perfect.
Because this is what we figured out over time, right? Phantom Buster or any of the other ones, right? You have a certain target audience. They can actually do that. This is the 10%. The other 90%, they are totally overwhelmed. It's all the tech setup. Yeah.
Excellent. That resonates. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So
What do you mean?
didn't share any contact information, and so people look like they want to chat with you more. Can you share some contact information so they can get a hold of you?
Yes, I put in LinkedIn here. Talking about LinkedIn. Yeah, it's IN, right?
Are there other people that have questions that they want to ask about the automation process? Thorsten just put his LinkedIn into the chat.
I have a quick question. I'm wondering what the difference is between a more of a customer outreach type of a program, or if you move more into the sales type of more of a sales type of platform where you're trying to sell the product into the directly sell the product into a market. You know, what changes there are.
The experiment track that we were doing, right, is usually LinkedIn only, right? Kept on LinkedIn on the platform. Sales goes off platform, goes to a landing page, right?
Okay.
Any kind of lead magnet. And it's more complicated to set up. There are more automations that we need to set up on the background in order to make this work.
Okay, so the landing page would just be just basically a third-party page that you would have set up outside of. It'd be outside of the LinkedIn umbrella.
It's your pitch, right? So if you have a pitch on LinkedIn about your product, right? If it's just an experiment, this is easy to do. But many of our customers, right? They have very complicated products, and you need actually to get to a landing page to really understand what they're offering. You can't actually put this into a LinkedIn message. So therefore, there is a different process.
And you think of a landing page as a page inside the server of the main domain of the company.
Correct. Absolutely right. It's the company's domain. That's the landing page.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions that people have?
So I have technical questions about like rate limits for both LinkedIn and Facebook. I am happy to postpone this to a few later conversation if other people aren't interested. But yeah, I'm full stack. I've done a lot of web scraping, and so my main two questions are like, one, what are our rate limits we should be looking at to not get banned on LinkedIn? Two, the flow about how often logging in, saving the cookie, do we need to refresh that, or are they not going to notice like the same authentication cookie?
They won't notice, right? You get actually email from our LinkedIn tool, right? They send you actually a message when your cookie is expired. You get an email actually from the tool, right? So you don't need to be logged in all the time. And regarding the limits, this depends on the account you're using, right? If you have a fresh account that is not warmed up, right, it's lower limits, right? And we don't control that. This is actually LinkedIn. I myself, I run like sometimes 200 messages per day, and this is totally fine.
Okay.
But I have like 5,000 connections, right, on my LinkedIn, right? So, and the strategy here is to build up actually your network. So it's not just the selling part, how you should actually use that. You can actually build your network, right, inside of certain LinkedIn groups. So you increase the size month over month by like 30%, right? So in 2 months, 3 months from now, you will be able to send way more messages.
Mm-hmm. And
So okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Now, I was just saying, we usually run like 2, 3, 4 different automations at the same time, right? It's not just one.
Right. And okay. And then have you had any experience where you have pushed those limits and you lose entire accounts, or are
No,
they flexible?
no.
Okay.
We don't go over these limits, and we cannot control this actually. I mean, they are built actually into our LinkedIn tool because the LinkedIn tool is talking to the LinkedIn server, right? And the LinkedIn server is actually pinging back. This is the amount of messages you can actually send out.
Okay. And does what you just described also apply to Facebook, where they're not initiating bans, they're just throttling you?
We have a different tool for this, right? And we are 50% actually under the limit always.
Okay.
And I can send you a list with all the limits, right?
That would be so valuable to
I
me.
send you a
Yeah,
list with all the social media limits, right?
that would be amazing.
Yeah, because you got to be very careful, especially with like Facebook, right? Because they have these tools out there. They are trying to, find all the automation tools.
Yeah. Yeah, those limits would be so valuable.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just send me a message, please, on LinkedIn. Okay.
Will do.
Okay.
So if you want to find other people that are in this audience, please post your LinkedIn to the chat, and you can share. Like I saw people who are all doing biotech, biomedical, healthcare stuff might have interests in common. We run a open coffee every Tuesday. That is sort of a general discussion about startups and how to do business work. I'm putting into the LinkedIn or into the chat the link to that open coffee. We're in the middle of Seattle Angel Conference 18, so our workshops that we're running on Thursdays are going to be more, we'll say, tactical for the next 3 months. And then when we move over to the next round in January, we'll go back to things that are focused on being investable and what it takes to be investable and due diligence and so forth. Any last questions before we call it the end? All right. Thorsten, thank you so very much with this. Do you have handouts that you are thinking you're going to share?
Yes, I can share that deck, and I can send, or you can post it actually into the meetup group, right? So I can send you a document.
Yeah, if you want to post it, that'd be great.
And I've put some links to guides, LinkedIn guides, automation limits, and things like that, which are very helpful.
Cool, that'd be great. And if you have trouble posting it into the meetup group, let me know and I'll.
No, I will send it to you. I will send it to you.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay.
So thanks very much. If you have topics that you would like to address between now and December, please send me a note. I put my LinkedIn to the chat, and we will be scheduling more workshops over the next 3 months that are very much oriented towards either doing a startup weekend business sprint or doing marketing experiments to try and drive customer bases.